Check out flipsidegaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10 and support the channel at the same time. Hey there, it's John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to part 1 of our 6-part Iconic Masters full set review. Today we're going to look at all of the white cards and a few of the multicolored cards. We'll look at Azorius as well as Orzhov colors. Now, if you've seen these set reviews before, you kind of know that we try to look at all the cards first and foremost from a limited point of view, draft and sealed. Especially true for this particular set. Since all of these cards are really good cards, and all of these cards are reprints, we kind of already know what they do in constructed formats. So our focus here is going to be entirely on limited archetypes as we go through, so keep that in mind. Now quickly before we get started, if you check out the description below, you'll find a couple ways to help support the channel, one of which is our Amazon affiliate links. If you make any purchases via those links, Iconic Masters or whatever it is, we'll get a small percentage back. Also, you'll find a link to Flipside Gaming. They have a promo code to help you save. Again, they are doing pre-orders as well for Iconic Masters, but have a whole lot of things going on there. And then finally, Patreon is still an option as well, so check that out. So with that being said, let's get into it. We're going to start off with the first card, and it's Abzan Battle Priest. So Abzan Battle Priest actually fits into a few different archetypes here. First and foremost, obviously the lifelink means it's going to fit into black and white pretty well. Black and white, the Orzhov colors, they're focused on life gain and life matters. So you're going to see a lot of lifelink, other ways to gain life. You're going to see payouts for having a lot of life or for gaining life. You'll notice a lot of that today as we go through white, but you'll also see it in a couple days when we go through all the black cards. So first and foremost, card's great there. Secondly, Outlast is a great ability in the Selesnya, the green-white deck. That deck is trying to add counters and kind of go tall. Maybe not as go wide of a deck, but a go tall deck for sure, and then use some tricks to get that damage across. So this fits into both of those, but this is such a great card. Outlast, one of my favorite abilities, a very powerful ability that even in other archetypes, you can probably use this card and be pretty happy with it. Abzan Falconer. Okay, along the same lines, because we have another Outlast card here. This one is a little bit different, though, because it doesn't have the life gain attached to it, but does have flying, which is especially nice in maybe an Azorius, a blue-white control deck, because the Azorius colors are all about control, but they do need some evasion creatures to get their damage across. This could be an option for you, but again, this is also very good in Selesnya. I would not count this out of a Boros build either, because at 3 mana, this actually feels pretty competitive in one of those more aggressive decks too, so just something to keep in mind. Einak Bonkin, another Outlast card, actually the third one in a row. This is another one that fits into perhaps the Boros aggro because it is so cheap and because it could potentially give some first strike to some of your creatures. Even if it's just this one, that could be good enough being a 3/2 first striker, right? For really an investment of 2 mana now and 2 mana later. Now granted, Boros aggro decks, they don't want to spend too much mana on not really pumping out creatures and advancing the board state, but if you flood, this is a nice option to have, I think. Beyond that, again, of course, it makes sense in Selesnya. Now, one last point before we move away from these Outlast cards. If you go Golgari colors, green and black, they're also doing a counter strategy. They're just trying to go more wide than tall, but maybe you splash some white in a deck like that, and you could find some potential use for these cards in other places too. Ajani's Pridemate, another card that feels tailor-made, of course, for that black-white life gain deck, but also good in the Selesnya deck. As long as you have maybe even just some white sources to gain life, you could get some value with a card like this in conjunction to the ones we just saw. Angel of Mercy, this one's interesting. A 3/3 flyer for 5 maybe feels a tad bit overcosted. You gain life when it enters the battlefield. Really, this is one of those cards that if you're desperate for a flyer, you'll play it. It's a common, so easy to pick up if you need to in a draft. The other reason, and maybe the more important reason you play this, is because you're in the life gain matter situation, whether that's other cards that it works well with within white or whether you're playing black and white. So if that's the case, yeah, you're going to be really happy to pick up this card. The card becomes a lot better for you. But again, if you just need a flyer, it's there too. Angelic Accord. Okay, here's one of those payoffs for life gain. Now, you do have to gain at least 4 life in a turn for this to matter, but if you can pull it off, you get yourself a white angel token, a 4/4 flyer. Now, with that being said, this card can be a little awkward. You have to really be all in on the life gain. If you're all in on that plan, then yeah, you know what, play this. I hate playing an enchantment for 4 that might do nothing the turn I play it, but there is a chance that I can activate it the turn it comes into play. I could be getting an angel. So, okay, maybe I have a lot of lifelink creatures or something like that, and it's going to work out for me. But it's not always going to happen. So this isn't always going to make your cut. It's just for a very specific deck. You have to be really into the life gain plan. Archangel of Thune. All right, here's one of the mythics. This card is awesome. Glad they reprinted this. Had a pretty high price tag. We've talked about it in other videos, the finance videos. But for today, we're talking about the card itself and what it can do. This card's a powerhouse. If you get it and you can cast it, play it, right? Like, I don't care what archetype you're in. Sure, it's great in the Orzhov gain life archetype, obviously, but I don't care if you're not in that. I don't care if you're not in the Selesnya +1/+1 archetype. This card is a beast. Play it. You'll be happy you did. It's awesome. Auriok Champion. This is pretty interesting because this was printed, I think, more or less because it has been an interesting sideboard card in the past for competitive play. So why not throw it in there and make another copy of it for players? At the same time, you're going to bring this in out of the board. If you're playing against black or red, it'll be a good card for you there because of the protection. It also could matter in a gain life strategy. So if you're all in on gain life, it's very, very playable. However, might not always make your cut even in that case. Again, probably more of a sideboard card in certain circumstances. Austere Command. I love commands. This one's great too. For 6 mana, you're getting a ton of versatility here. It is sorcery speed, granted, but you can deal with problematic artifacts or enchantments or small creatures or large creatures. Just play this card. It's a good panic button overall. Avacyn, Angel of Hope, another one of the big mythics. I'm glad they reprinted this, especially for Commander players. This card's awesome. So, it's a little expensive though, and here's the deal. She's a powerhouse, right? Flying, Vigilance, Indestructible, gives your other permanents Indestructible, 8/8. What's not to love here, right? But you have to cast her for it to matter. If you don't think you can get her on the battlefield, you might want to skip her. So it depends on your build, depends on your deck. There is some ramp in this set. You're going to see that as we go on. And as a matter of fact, green and red, their whole idea is ramping into big spells. So you might have a chance here and there to find opportunities to play this card. Not always going to make your cut, though, because of that high casting cost, especially 3 on color. So just be careful. You're going to want to play this if you can, but just know your deck. Don't overstep. Benevolent Ancestor. This one has Defender, which is actually pretty interesting because Simic Colors has a Defender theme going on. So you could splash maybe a little white and get a few extra Defender creatures perhaps in some builds. But even so, if you're not doing that, this still has a place maybe in an Azorius deck because it comes off the ground a little bit, prevents a little bit of damage, slows things down. That's what those decks want to do. Those control decks want to slow things down. Blinding Mage. Okay, another great control card, but I'll be honest with you, this is awesome probably in every build. Just a real cheap way to tap down an opponent's creature at will. Yeah, you're going to be really, really happy to have one of these. It's a common, so they'll be floating around, so be aware of these things when you sit down at the table to play. They could come out as early as turn 2 and start to really slow down a game. Burrenton Forge Tender. Okay, another pro color card, this time protection from red. It's a 1-drop, and this to me just feels like a sideboard card, especially if you go up against somebody who's lucky enough to get like Channel Fireball, right? Or they don't even need Channel Fireball. They could have Fireball and just some ramp or something, and you could be in for a hard time. So this card is going to help to nullify that. Just bring it in game 2, game 3 as protection. Disenchant. Some sets you can main deck Disenchant, probably feel pretty confident with it. I don't know about this set. This feels a little more creature-centric in a lot of ways, but good sideboard cards. You'll be happy it's there when you need it. Doomed Traveler. I love Doomed Traveler. This is an awesome card. It's just annoying to deal with. Like, your opponent's sitting there and they're like, I'm going to kill it, but then I'm going to have a 1/1 flyer hit me every turn. And if you play 2 or 3 of these, they are commons. You'll be able to find them. It can get really annoying really fast, right? Just 3 of these or 4 of these even starts to feel like a free Lingering Souls at some point, right? So it can get out of hand. It's a great card. It's going to fit again into a lot of different archetypes. And I feel like this is a very good even Boros aggro card because it's a 1-drop that's really hard to deal with and can turn into a flyer. Dragon Bell Monk. Okay, here's a prowess card. So naturally you start to think this is going to go well with Azorius control, and it will. But this is also another card that I wouldn't be sad to put in a red-white aggro build either. It's only 3, it has the prowess, and you probably will have some red spells to back things up there too. And the fact that it's vigilance also allows you to protect yourself a little bit and maybe win a race. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good card. Elish Norn, Grand Cenobite. Okay, here's the third and final white mythic we'll look at today. She's a powerhouse, right? Like, okay, the Praetor cycle is here in the set, of course. This is the one for white. And yeah, if you can cast her, Yeah, play the card because it's good. It's really good. I can't really think of a reason not to play this unless you're not in white. That's the only reason. But yeah, it's just a powerhouse. 4/7 vigilance, +2/+2 to your creatures, -2/-2 to your opponent's creatures. This card's backbreaking. Emerge Unscathed. I love these type of instants. These quick little instants that can protect your stuff, but there's so much versatility here because it's giving protection from a color of your choice, and it has rebound, so you get to do it again next turn, which is actually kind of sweet. So you can use this to sometimes protect your creature from a removal spell. You can use it to get damage across if you're going on the offensive. This is really good in the Selesnya builds. If you have a big creature that doesn't have evasion, that you need to get it across, this will help you get it across perhaps twice even if you're lucky. So this card is awesome in any build, but feels like it's tailored for that particular deck. Emeria Angel. Okay, here's another angel. You're going to see that is just an overall theme, even though there's no real link between the angels, so just keep that in mind. But this one has landfall. Landfall is not really a theme either, but it does tend to work well with Azorius because sometimes you go a little land heavy in those type of builds when you're being more controlling, have a lot of counter magic. You might go perhaps 18 land or something like that, so you might get a little bonus there. But this is going to be good in that type of deck because if you can get it on the battlefield, then you're going to get some more 1/1 flyers just by playing your lands and just by playing magic, and that's kind of nice. But aside from that, is this good in other builds? Of course it is. This is just a good card generally. Grand Teacher's Decree. Here's the perfect Boros aggro card just to get some crazy damage across a little bit later once you build out all your cheap creatures, right? +2/+1 and rebound. Maybe you get to do it twice. Yeah, this thing can be sometimes game winning depending on the board state. Guard Duty. Okay, here's another card that plays with Defender, which again, it's more of a Simic thing. But this is also a way to stop from getting bashed in by some creature you don't have an answer to, and it's a cheap way to do it. Now, hopefully you have better removal and you won't need this, and this might not always make your cut, obviously, but if you're really desperate for removal and you've had maybe a bad game one and you feel like you need to board this in, like it's there, don't forget about it. It's not great, but it does have a role. It could buy you some time, if nothing else, maybe in a control deck. Guided Strike, another great combat trick. Happy to run one of these, especially if I'm short on removal. It kind of works as removal some of the time, just takes a little setup, and it replaces itself, so that's actually really, really sweet. So all that for just 2 mana at instant speed, sign me up. Probably a little bit better maybe in Boros, but it's probably good anywhere. Infantry Veteran, another card that's great for the Boros aggro decks because it really makes combat math more difficult. And that's what those decks want to do. Put down a lot of small, quick creatures. Maybe they have a few abilities here and there, and then something like this could potentially pump any of those creatures that are attacking. And it really makes your opponent have to think about what they're doing. Great one drop. Iona's Judgment. Okay, this is a good removal spell. It's sorcery speed for 5, but it does exile, and it's creature or enchantment, which is kind of nice. You get that versatility, but most importantly, this is a common. So if you're having trouble finding some of the other removal spells, this will be pretty good for you. You'll be happy to come across it when the time comes, right? So very, very runnable removal. Path of Bravery, another really good life gain matters card. So this particular one, as long as your life total is greater or equal to your starting life total, all your creatures get +1/+1. So it is an Anthem effect. And then whenever one or more creatures you control attacks, you gain life. I would consider putting this in a Boros aggro build as well, because it just depends on your deck. It would be nice to have some other life gain medium in there as well. If you do, this is a no-brainer, throw it in there. If you don't, it does help you gain life in itself. Even if it doesn't create the Anthem effect, sometimes it just helps you win a race. Pentarch Ward. Okay, this is another really sweet card, especially for Selesnya, where you could have a big creature and you just need to get it across. What I like about this most of all, though, is it replaces itself, so you don't feel like you get 2 for 1 if things don't go the right way when you actually play this, so that's actually kind of cool. At least you get that replacement card. So just overall, I could see myself running this in a lot of different builds, actually. Maybe as a one-of, but definitely Selesnya. Restoration Angel. Okay, here's one of the cards that does flicker. But just overall, even if you don't have good Entrance Battlefield effects, still play this card. It's a 3/4 flyer with flash for 4. It's real good. So just another real solid creature here. I love the fact that they use the art from the promo too. It looks super sweet. Seeker of the Way. I love this card. This card's super sweet. Great cube card. It just does a lot of damage. You just don't expect it. That prowess 2/2 for 2, and when you cast a non-creature spell, it gets lifelink till end of turn. So it's doing a lot of things. This is great in aggro decks like the red-white. This is going to be great for you, obviously, in the black-white life matters decks, right? Because of the life link. This is good in Azorius control decks because of the prowess and the fact you're probably going to be playing a higher level of non-creature spells. So you can fit this into a lot of places real easy. All right, there she is, Serra Angel, one of the original Magic cards. She's been reprinted many times, and probably most people listening to this have played with her at some point or another in different formats or different games. Serra, in Limited, she's awesome, right? 4/4, Flying Vigilance for 5. If your opponent doesn't deal with this or find an answer, they just get run over, quite honestly. It's a card that also can protect you. You can go on the aggressive but still defend yourself. Really, really phenomenal card. If for some reason you haven't played with it before, give it a chance. If you can play white, again, I'd say you're probably going to include this in your deck most of the time. Serra Ascendant, great reprint here. I'm glad they got to this one. And this is great in that black-white deck, obviously. It's a great payoff for gaining some life. If you don't have a lot of consistent ways to gain life, you probably skip this one. But if you do, the payout here is great. Stalwart Avon, nice little curve filler creature, and only a set like Iconic Masters, what I call a 3 casting cost, 1/3 flyer with Renown, 1 a curve filler. This is actually pretty good, and it just fits into a lot of places again. Good for Azorius because it has evasion, probably good for Boros aggro because it's only 3, and with that Renown you can get some serious damage across pretty quickly. Overall, just a good card. Student of Ojitai. Okay, this one's interesting because it's a 4 casting cost 2/4. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you'll gain 2 life. So life gain matters. It does fit in there. It's not an abundance of life and it is contingent on other stuff going on. But if you have enough going on and you feel confident with that, then yeah, you can definitely play it there. Maybe it doesn't always make your cut if you have better things. You could play this in a Azorius deck because it comes off the ground as a 2/4. And non-creature spells, you probably have more of an abundance of them in that particular build, which means you'll ultimately gain more life and just helps you drag out the game a little bit. And yeah, just generally, if you just need a blocker or something like that, it's just a fine, again, curve filler just for other decks too. Survival Cachet. Another way to gain life, but this one is all about having a big life gain structure around you. If you don't have that structure, skip this card, because for 3 mana, sorcery speed, gaining 2 life, even with the rebounds, and even the potential chance that maybe you can draw a card or 2 off this thing, could be sweet if it happens, but it kind of feels like a win more too at that point. But if you're all in on life gain, I would probably run one of these and probably be okay with it. If I'm not all in on that plan, I'll probably skip this. Sustainer of the Realm, another good flying angel here, 2/3. When it blocks, it gets +0/+2, so it's another good defender. Good for some of the decks like Azorius that are trying to gum up the game a little bit, but also too just a fine flyer really for any build. Swords to Plowshares. Okay, here's the removal you want. We've seen some decent removal. Well, here is excellent removal. Maybe the best white removal ever. It's definitely up there, I would say. And if you can get your hands on this, definitely do so. In a draft, this is first pickable. Even in a powerful set like this, where you have some crazy rares and some crazy mythics, this is still a very, very first pickable card so much of the time. This card is phenomenal no matter what build you're playing. Toppan Freeblade, great aggro card for red-white. It's a good creature just generally, but what I like about this, you pay 2 for a 2/2, it's got Vigilance, Renown 1, it just attacks fast. Like, you get this down on turn 2, especially if you're on the play. If you can get across damage on turn 3, now it's a 3/3 Vigilance. It just kind of outpaces your opponent. It's just really difficult to deal with, and your opponent doesn't want to use like their Swords of Plowshares on this, but they might just have to if they can't get their legs under them. It's a really, really good card for that deck, but also others. Wing Shards. Okay, Storm's on this card, but don't worry, Storm's not a theme in this set or anything. But keep in mind, Storm is a mechanic here on this particular card. It might come in handy. But just overall, this is fine removal. Like, it's not the best because sometimes you get boxed in a little bit. If your opponent's going wide, for example, then this card might not be good enough for you. But it's still fine removal. You'll be happy to run it. Yosai the Morning Star. Okay, so the whole cycle of the Kamigawa Dragons is here. This is the white one. They're all at rare. That's nice because in Modern Masters, they reprinted these all as mythics. So it's nice to see them as rares. But this card is generally another good card, right? Not too much to say about it. Like a 5/5 flyer for 6, and when it dies, target player skips his or her next untap, and you get to tap up to 5 target permanents that player controls. Your opponent's in a weird situation. A lot of times they can't let this die or they lose the game. So what do? Do they take the 5? Do they keep chump blocking? It just makes for a really tough situation until they can find a way to deal with this effectively and not be in a situation where when they deal with it, they lose the game, right? Now, granted, if you're behind and you draw this, it might not be quite good enough, but it's still a 5/5 flyer for 6. You'll be happy to run this. All right, let's move on to a few of the multicolored cards. We'll look at the blue and white cards, starting with Azorius Charm. This card's awesome. Like, so much versatility. I love versatile cards with all these modes like this. This one, it can either replace itself, which is going to be great, especially if you're digging for an answer or maybe looking for a counter spell in your control builds. You can put target attacking or blocking creature on top of its owner's library so you can save your creature against a combat trick, or just use it for a tempo play, which is great for the control decks. Creatures you control gain lifelink until end of turn. That's a huge play as well. You can pull that out at instant speed. Great for the black-white decks if maybe you splash a little bit of blue, but it's still good just generally. Great card. Supreme Verdict. Okay, here's your board sweep. You got to splash a little blue for it, and it destroys all creatures. Can't be countered. That's kind of nice too, especially against some other control decks. Now, yeah, you can play this in Azorius control build, but you can splash blue really and play this in anything you're playing white, quite honestly. If you can afford to swing the colors, go ahead and play this. Board sweeps are great panic buttons. Sometimes you don't need them, but you'll be happy you drew it when you do need it. So you're going to run it. You're going to have it keep a spot in your deck, and you're going to be fine with that no matter what, quite honestly. This is probably first pickable in many, many packs. Blood Baron of Viscopa. As we move into the black and white cards, you're going to see some life matters here with lifelink and protection from white and black. I'm not going to tell you to board this in against white and black because you're going to be main decking this if you can afford to cast a card that has white and black in it, basically. No reason not to. As long as you have 30 or more life and an opponent has 10 or less life, this will get +6/+6 in flying, basically put away the game at that point. Great card. Again, if you can swing the casting cost, if you're in those colors, you're going to run it. Doesn't matter if you're all in on the whole life plan or not. This is just a great card. Viscopa Guildmage. Here's another really fine card that is awesome in this particular Life Matters build. Okay, it's cheap. It costs 2 for a 2/2, and then it has abilities that don't tap it, so you can use them multiple times. Target creature gains lifelink until end of turn, and also whenever you gain life this turn, each opponent loses that much life. So a perfect payout for a deck that's going to be gaining a lot of life, but also gives you the means to gain life on the card itself if you have enough mana to pour into this. Really, really strong card again generally, but great in that build. Alright, so that's actually our last card for today. Got through all the white cards. Our next video, we're going to look at the blue cards and some of the multicolored cards again. So with that being said, that's it for today. Hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.